Hello and welcome to my home. Today I'm going to talk to you about planting eggplants. I have some eggplants that I started indoors and I'm ready to transplant them out. So I'm going to talk to you about the container requirements, soil requirements, watering, and just some general things that you need to know about growing your eggplants. Now I'm planting a variety called the Black Beauty, and this is the big ones that you normally see in the grocery store. So I'm looking forward to planting those. And before we get there, I want to let you know that I also have other types of videos on my channel. I have easy to cook recipes, I have product reviews, I have some meditation videos, and lots of container gardening videos to help you get growing your vegetables. So come on, let's get started on those eggplant vegetables and get them transplanted. So for your eggplant, you need at least a 4 to 5 gallon pot. Now that's for one eggplant. This time I'm going to use a 10-gallon pot, and this is one that has one of those type of grow bags or arrow grow where it's made out of that cloth kind of felt material. So there's no need to put drainage holes because of the fabric allows very good drainage of any water. And since this is 10 gallon, I'm going to plant 3 eggplants in here, and I think it should do pretty well. I could squeeze 4, but I'm thinking that would be pushing it a little bit too much. So I have some leftover potting mix from last season, and if you've been following me, you know I like to reuse that potting mix to help save on the planting budget basically. So I have about 1/3 of this pot filled with that used potting mix, and I'm going to amend it with some all-purpose fertilizer. The brand that I use is Dr. Earth. It's just your regular all-purpose fertilizer. There's so many different types on the market. Now I got this from Amazon, so I looked at the product reviews of different types of fertilizer and it just seemed like it was pretty good. I've used others in the past, so there's plenty of them out there. And this is a picture of the eggplant. Look like that. Just regular seeds, like if you ever ate an eggplant, and I'm hoping that you have, that's the seeds that you normally see in there. So let me get my gloves on. Now here are the seedlings that I started indoors. I used the egg crate to get them started in, and they really do need to be planted out. I got held up on planting these out. Should have been planted out a week or two ago, but we had some unseasonably cool weather and I just didn't want to put them out. So I'm going to start by pouring some water in here and getting them loosened out of their little eggshell cells here. And while they are soaking through with the water, I'm going to add the Dr. Earth in here. Now I use just the regular, what they call the handful method. Just that much, just enough in your palm of your hand, just like that. I'm just going to mix it in. And now I'm going to top it off with some fresh topsoil, so I'll be right back. Now when you're adding your potting mix, make sure you pat it down because you're trying to get out the air bubbles. Because if you don't, over the next few days, you're going to find the level of your soil sinking down and you're wondering why that happened, why you don't have as much soil as you thought. And that's why. Now sometimes I put a little bit of topsoil in here. The topsoil doesn't really add anything to it. It just helps me stretch my potting mix budget because potting mix tends to be a little more expensive. And if I had some, I would put maybe like 1/3 to 2/3. So 1/3 of topsoil to 2/3 of potting mix. But really, you're really supposed to be using as much potting mix as you should, which is the whole container. If you have the budget for it, then just put all potting mix in there. I don't find putting that little bit of topsoil in there causes any problem. Okay, so now I'm going to add some more fertilizer to the top half. I'm going to use a little heavier handful this time because I put in a lot more soil. Excuse the noise in the background. They're doing some construction work, so hopefully it's not too distracting. Okay, so now we're ready to get planting. I'm going to wet the soil a little bit, only because that soil was so dry. Okay. So you're just going to pop it out. Pop it out one by one. And try to get as much of the root ball as you can. And these roots are going to be all the way down to the bottom of the container, because it wasn't that deep of a container. There's the roots. Those roots are really long in there, so we're going to pretty much bury it up to right there. Just make a little hole and pack it around there. I'm going to do kind of a triangular planting there to try to get them nice and planted out. So I got one more to get in here. Okay, it's that simple. I'm going to give you a closer shot of it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the eggplant. So I told you about the container needs be about 4 to 5 gallons if you're only going to plant one. I'm doing a 10-gallon one, so I would think I can get by with 3 plants in there. The soil, you're going to use potting mix. I have a potting mix that has some fertilizer in there, but I did add some more all-purpose fertilizer because eggplants are heavy feeders. They want to get those roots off to a good start. Now you need to put your container in a sunny spot as you do with your vegetables. That's a trash truck right now. As far as watering, I'm going to water them in again real deep. And then you want to check if you can, check on your plants every week for the moisture. Now I like to do the old finger method. So you just kind of, let's see, there you go, you can see it. Poke your hand in there about 1 inch, and if it feels dry, it's time to water it. Now let's talk a little bit more about the fertilizer. So what I used, this Dr. Earth, is a granular form of fertilizer, and so it slowly releases throughout the season. You only have to replenish this about 2 to 3 months, and it's just about doing a side dressing. You're just going to kind of go around it and just put a little bit around the side and work it into your plant. That's called side dressing, and you want to be at least 1 inch or 2 from the root of the base of the plant when you do that. But for these eggplants, you're going to want to do additional fertilizing. You're going to want to use a water soluble type fertilizer, and there's all types that you can find. You want to use the water soluble fertilizer every 2 weeks. So what happens is you're going to put it in your watering can, so follow the directions, stir it up. I just use the end of a twig or if you have on the end of a like a spoon, or like those wooden spoons that you cook with, and just stir it up, and then you pour it around your plants. And that additional in-between feeding, between the in-between feeding, of the water-soluble fertilizer and that granular fertilizer, is going to give the eggplant the nutrients that it needs to produce, because eggplants, these big purple eggplants, again, they're very big, and they take a lot of energy. Now for the purple beauty, these have to be staked, just like tomato plants have to have stakes in them to keep them firm and tall. Now if you're growing some of the more bushier varieties, you may not have to stake them, but this one you're definitely going to have to stake. Now harvest, that's what everyone wants to do. Harvesting is more of an art than a science. You want to pick them when they're firm and glossy, but you don't want to get them to the point where when you press on the skin, it leaves a thumb imprint in the skin. That means it's overripe, and it could be very bitter. On the other hand, you don't want to pick them when they're underripe. So what you want to do is you need to check, and gently, as your eggplants get bigger, notice how they're growing. Kind of press on them, and you can tell the difference between when they're really stiff and firm and hard, when they're still maturing. And tell it, and kind of keep feeling it every day until it gets to the point where it's just starting to get a little yielding to your touch, and you should be good to go. But it's more like an art than a science, and it's going to depend on your variety. So be patient with yourself and be patient with your eggplant as you try to figure out what the best time to harvest is. But you're going to figure it out pretty quickly. After selecting your first one, you should know whether you need to wait longer or if you should have picked it sooner. So eggplants are definitely warm weather. They don't like it cool. If you have your eggplants out and the weather is dropping down into the 60s and below, I suggest you cover it with a shade cover, or pull it closer to the house if you're able to move the container, because they love it when it's up in the 80s and 90s. And harvest time usually happens around July, August, early September, depending on where you are. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, and hit that notification bell so you know when I've uploaded a new video. Well, that's it for now. Bye bye.